Look at a map of the Middle East today. It is no longer just a collection of borders and capitals. It is now a live fire zone. Lines of attack and retaliation crisscross the region. The United States and Israel have launched a major coordinated military operation against Iran. The Pentagon calls this mission Operation Epic Fury. The Israel Defense Forces call it Roaring Lion. These strikes are not small or limited. They represent a significant escalation in a long simmering conflict. This is the beginning of a new and dangerous chapter for the entire world. The calm of yesterday is gone, replaced by the sounds of sirens and explosions. The attacks targeted the heart of Iran's military and political power structure. Bombs fell on military installations. Command and control centers were hit. They struck suspected nuclear facilities. They struck missile production sites. The strikes were designed to be overwhelming and decisive. They were meant to send a clear and unmistakable message, but messages sent with missiles often receive replies in kind. In the past 48 hours, the region has erupted, and the world is watching a map that seems to redraw itself with fire. The attacks began without a formal declaration of war. President Trump announced them in a social media post in the early morning hours. Operation Epic Fury was swift and widespread. U.S. forces launched strikes. Israeli forces launched strikes. Israel calls it their largest aerial operation ever. Initial targets were chosen to cripple Iran's military. Strikes confirmed against key nuclear research sites. The effort aimed to set back Iran's atomic ambitions. Missile factories were hit. Arsenals were hit. Iran did not wait long to respond. Within hours, waves of missiles were launched. Waves of drones were launched. The primary target was Israel itself and numerous U.S. military bases across the Middle East. Explosions, rocksteadies, and military installations. The conflict spilled into neighboring countries, a chaotic multi-front battlefield. U.S. bases in Kuwait came under attack. U.S. bases in Qatar came under attack. U.S. bases in Bahrain came under attack. The skies over the Persian Gulf filled with projectiles and interceptors. The war spread beyond the initial belligerents, pulling in populations and governments alike. This war is the product of decades of mistrust and hostility. The roots run deep, tracing back to Iran's 1979 revolution and the hostage crisis. More recently, the primary driver has been Iran's nuclear program. For years, many feared Iran was edging toward a weapon. They point to enrichment activities and long-range missiles. Iran insisted is peaceful, claims met with skepticism abroad. Agreements were signed, but proved fragile and fell apart. The breakdown left a dangerous void. Tensions grew as Iran accelerated and sanctions tightened. A shadow war intensified across the region. Iranian proxies clashed with Israel and targeted U.S. interests. Repeated attacks raised pressure on Washington to act. Advocates argued only striking inside Iran could stop the source. This logic eventually won out. Intelligence and timing converged. The window to act was closing. Preemption became the doctrine behind Operation Epic Fury. From a right-leaning strategic perspective, this was a necessary act of defense. Containment and sanctions failed to change Iran's behavior. Decisive military action, they argue, was the only option left. Strategic pillars: prevention, deterrence, decapitation, allied security. Above all, prevent Iran from ever acquiring a nuclear weapon, existential for Israel, and a global blackmail risk for the U.S. The human cost became apparent almost immediately. In Iran, the strikes caused significant casualties. The most horrific report came from Remapped, where a strike hit a girls' primary school. Iranian sources say 165 students were recovered from the rubble, a devastating toll on civilians. The full toll is still being counted, but it is already tragically high. The United States has also suffered losses. 3 U.S. service members were killed and at least 5 seriously wounded in Kuwait. They were part of a sustainment unit supporting the operation. President Trump acknowledged that more American casualties are likely. For civilians, the war is no longer distant. It's overhead. Key shipping lanes and energy routes are under threat. Oil prices surged as markets opened. The trajectory is impossible to predict. Airports have closed. Travel and trade are disrupted. Consumers everywhere could feel the shock at the pump and beyond. The most significant strike killed Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. Reports say other senior commanders, including Chief of Staff Abdulrahim Mousavi, were killed. Striking the top aimed to disrupt command and guaranteed a furious response. The death of the supreme leader transformed this into an existential struggle for the regime. One question now hangs over this war. Was it inevitable or an avoidable catastrophe?